Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's event entitled Skype for Business Managed UC. To learn more about the ways you can participate in today's event, please click on the Messages button in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. If you have any difficulties viewing or hearing the stream today, please refresh your screen by pressing Control F5 on your keyboard. And now I'd like to turn today's event over to your presenter, Ali Kazmi, Business Consultant. Ali, you now have the floor.
Thank you very much, Robin. My name is Ali Kazmi with Acceleration. Let me just give you a brief introduction of Acceleration and how we've come about with our Skype for Business practice today. Initially, we started in our business about 15 years ago as a pure SharePoint Microsoft partner. And by way of that, we have grown our practice and now taken those methodologies into the Office 365 stack to where we now can serve all professional services on Office 365. And primarily today, we're going to be focusing on our brand new Skype for Business practice. And our practice lead today who's going to be giving the presentation and demonstration of the Skype for Business is David Langlois. He has been in the business for about 25 years with exponential experience around unified communications and prior competitive knowledge around Avaya, Cisco, and now leading the efforts around Skype for Business for Acceleration. David, if I may hand over the floor to you now.
Thanks, Ali. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm pretty excited about what our presentation is all about, which is our new managed UC practice. I want to go over a quick agenda with you all. So give me one moment. We're going to start off with a little introduction around unified communications. I'm going to follow that up with a brief discussion around architectural considerations when we talk about Link or Skype for Business. And then we're going to jump right into the managed UC solution and offering and the tools that we're utilizing to help our clients. And then after that, we'll open the forum up for some questions and answers. So I wanted to start off with just a brief background about myself. I started in this industry, as Ali said, about 25 years ago, and fresh out of college up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And my job at that time, I worked for a VAR, and I went out and met with clients. And through discovery, we would design and deploy and support their communications platform. And even though we say we've been in the business for 25 years in unified communications, really, it wasn't unified communications. It was really like a unique communications, if you will. We really just had telephony. That was it. And voicemail was just starting to come into mainstream business. But then over the years, we started seeing these other modalities of communication. We started seeing email. Video was there pretty early on. Let's see, unified messaging surprisingly has been around for a very long time. Then we started seeing some collaboration tools, both on-prem and in the cloud, for customers to do web share content. Meet Me conferencing was right around the corner. And then we really started getting into instant message. And along the way, the telephony piece of this was really always at the core. So as these technologies came in, the first question was always, can we do integration, or does that manufacturer have the capability to integrate to these different applications? And that was our job. And so to the customer, they were excited because they had these very cool modalities of communication like video and instant message, and all these things were kind of loosely tied to the PBX through some application servers. But behind the scenes, very difficult to integrate. There's lots of dependencies. If one of those modalities wasn't quite ready for an upgrade to the manufacturer's telephony platform, another one was ready. And so what you ended up having to do is really manage 5, 6, 7 different systems and platforms and manage the whole update and upgrade process, which became extremely difficult because nobody, when they're different manufacturers, or sometimes even if it's the same manufacturers, on the same page with their different applications. So very complex to support, but customers were happy because they had these cool tools to deal with. Around 2007 or 2008, I was at the Microsoft Briefing Center, and I saw this demonstration of a product called OCS, Office Communicator Server. This was the predecessor to Microsoft Link and Skype for Business as we know it today. And I was completely floored. This, to me, was the most amazing and powerful unified communications tool that I had seen. And for the first time, I realized everything that myself and colleagues and other companies in our space that were presenting as unified communications really wasn't. It's just what we knew, and it's just how things were done. But Microsoft had this powerful tool that I embraced immediately because I knew this was going to be the solution. That wasn't just a great solution for business, but an impact tool. And over again, when we deploy solutions for clients today, that's the first thing, is about how much of an impact it has been to their business, which is really nice to hear. And so why OCS and what made me get so excited about this solution is when I was dealing with the integrations of all these different modalities of communication, OCS truly brought everything together in this very clean, elegant client, where with presence, the ability to now see if somebody is available or away, or on a video call, or in a conference call, or they're presenting. This now gives all of us the intelligence to decide what is the best way to communicate with this individual. It is so effective in making sure that we're collaborating and communicating with each other that time is saved, collaboration increases, and it's a technology that is embraced by the entire organization from top down. Not only is the ability to, from presence, launch an instant message, drag a few people in, escalate it to a phone call, drag some people outside of your office via mobile numbers or home numbers or office numbers into a conference bridge, and then escalating that to a full-blown video conference bridge, and then doing some desktop share and collaboration. Not only is that powerful, but the whole concept of what we call unified access and unified availability even makes that much more profound. So not only is this tool so powerful as a unified communication tool, again, where I'm able to communicate and escalate from instant message to voice and video and collaboration, not only communicate with fellow employees, but companies who don't have Skype for Business, and then of course companies who too, that we federate with, makes it just that much more of a powerful global tool. But what I really love about the solution is what we call unified access and unified availability. And I think this is the critical piece, because not only is this tool so powerful for me right here at my laptop, where I'm working right this very moment in my office, but the ability for me to load a client onto my mobile iPhone. By the way, folks, the Skype for Business client is officially out as of about a day or two ago. But loading that client onto my iPhone and having that same experience, how I set up groups in my Skype for Business client, how I add users to it, those same groups and people are with presence and the ability to launch instant message and phone calls and video is on my mobile device. My wife has a Surface device that I've been playing around with for several months now. And then on the soccer field, water polo games, wherever it may be, I have that mobile device with my Wi-Fi, and I have the ability to communicate, initiate conversation, participate in video calls, initiate conference bridges, just like if I was in the office, because the same look and feel of that client is spread across all of the devices I use, including, sorry to say this, Microsoft, but my Mac, my wife's Mac, I will say, back at my home. So all of these different devices, I use my Skype for Business on a regular basis. And then unified availability is really about two things, I think. Number one, unlike the traditional telephony and UC players, it was almost impossible to push out some of these cool applications that we've been talking about today. A, it was too cost prohibitive. And B, there was a huge learning curve because even though they called it unified communications, it's still mostly different applications from the different manufacturers. And so on unified availability, I really classify that as everybody in the organization gets it, from top executive to whoever else in the organization, from upper, mid, lower management, workers, warehouse folks, receptionists are embracing the tool. They need to because that's how they answer their calls. It is a powerful tool that everybody gets with the same ability to initiate conferencing, webinars, video calls, and so forth. When you give the tool to everybody, they truly embrace it and they start using it. And the other component about unified availability is anywhere access. As long as I have internet access, whether I am working in the office, I often move to the conference room in our office, I work from home regularly, I was in a hotel all of last week. I'm sitting in customers' lobbies with my little iPhone Skype for Business app. No matter where I am, I have availability and access into my Skype for Business client to initiate all these different conversations and to receive conversation requests as well. So the tool is extremely powerful. I wanted to just real briefly also talk about the architectural considerations, because this is an important discussion, but it can, every company is completely different. As an example, when I first discovered the OCS in 2007, 2008, I never at that time thought that this was actually ever going to be a telephony PBX replacement. We were a big Avaya and ShoreTel shop. We believed in the product. We believed on phones on the desk. Here was this powerful tool. How would it work? And so it worked by us reaching out to customers and talking to them about, hey, keep your PBX in place, but we will use this powerful tool to extend and enhance your current telephony platform. We will leverage instant message. We will leverage the Meet Me conference and webinar capabilities that are inherent into the solution. We will leverage video conferencing. And a lot of those manufacturers at that time had what we call remote call control, where the client can control their desk phone. So that was really kind of the best of both worlds. Keep that tried and true core PBX at the core and wrap this solution to still take advantage of all these other modalities of communication in a unified fashion. But then when late 2010 came out, and then we got 2013, and now, of course, Skype for Business, along the way, Microsoft made huge improvements in the capability of the solution to support your traditional enterprise telephony capabilities, such as E911 support, branch office survivability, high availability, geo-redundancy, attendant console, paging, call park. A lot of those applications were missing, and now they're available. So then things kind of changed a little bit. When we're out meeting with clients, we're now able to, and confidently, say this really can be your PBX replacement. And so the architectural considerations was, even to this day, as of my most recent presentation yesterday, customers still have some telephony that they put big investments in, brand new, but they see the value of the unified communications by Skype for Business wrapping around it. And so we love replacing the PBX, but we know it's not always a reality. So we can accommodate folks by tight integrations, dialing between the two solutions, maybe deploying Skype for Business where it makes sense for them, like home office workers or mobile workers or maybe some new branches opening up, but being very respectful and mindful of the fact that, you know what, they put a lot of money into this. However, for customers who are looking for replacements, end of life for their PBX, or maybe even end of life for some of their branch office locations, very powerful, and we're deploying this on a regular basis as a true telephony, full-blown unified communication platform. And when we're able to leverage all the roles and how easy it is to communicate based on availability and presence, it is, again, an impact game-changing solution for customers. So from an architectural consideration, love to meet with clients. Any one of you folks who would like to have, if you're far away, we can do webinars or desktop shared collaboration, or, you know, locally we can come out to your office and whiteboard out some neat solutions that you guys might like. So now let's talk about managed unified communications. Now this is an interesting thing. I gave you a bit of a background on unified communications and where it's come. And the important thing that's always kind of, I don't know, rose a lot of questions for me is this. From the very early days of selling and supporting clients with their telephony PBX platform, support and maintenance was required. And it's still required today with your traditional PBXs. You cannot purchase a new system with right to uses or software licensing without purchasing support. Now, in some cases, the manufacturer will say, okay, after your initial purchase of the solution and the initial support has expired, then you could opt out of not purchasing support. But there's tremendous risk, right? There's patch considerations. who's going to be monitoring and helping on the system. We had one manufacturer we're a strong partner of. They said, okay, if you don't want to do support, first initial call is $2,700 before we even start talking about what's going on. And so it was highly discouraged, but the interesting thing is that usually was never an issue, because no matter what, from the early days until right now, when customers purchase a PBX telephony platform, support is demanded, right? It's not really required, it's demanded. It's never really a consideration. 95 out of 100, maybe 9 out of 10 folks will have support without even a question. They are freaked out that it could possibly even lapse. But the interesting thing is, from the early days with OCS and Link and Skype for Business, support seems to be almost optional for customers. Almost like, we're okay. We don't really need it. And it truly scares me to death, because if we look at this image that was shared with me by a colleague, Matt Christopher, he basically has this duck, right? And it looks peaceful. This is kind of like, to me, the Skype for Business client. It's just very elegant. It's beautiful. It works. It's clean. But behind the scenes, lots of things are going on, right? There are servers, there's gateways, a lot of different things are going on. It is by far the most stable platform that I've worked with. But some things that are very, very important is, on the plus side earlier when I mentioned unified availability and access, where I can use any one of my devices anywhere, where I'm truly hosting meetings in my car because I'm running late to my office with my MiFi, the ability for me to host a meeting and do webinar share. The power of that on the backside, it must kill the support and IT folks, because they're getting complaints like, hey, I had a poor quality experience on this conference bridge. And the time spent troubleshooting different people's experience, mostly that are outside of the office in over cellular MiFi applications or city Wi-Fi, wherever it may be, they're taking advantage, which I'm very happy they are taking advantage of the great tool and being anywhere and any access and availability. But again, behind the scenes, there's a lot of stuff going on, and ultimately come back and say, hey, I had this conference call, and Skype for Business, I don't know about that. It didn't have a great quality experience. But we have to be fair, and we have to realize that there are a lot of things that are going on in a Skype for Business environment purely because of the flexibility of it. But what we want to do is, we don't want to put any of our customers with our managed UC in a spot where we say, it's not much we can do about it, or we don't know why there's a problem. It's just because maybe they're talking or communicating in their hotel room and it's not great bandwidth. Yeah, that could be true, but wouldn't it be nice to know exactly what is going on behind the scenes so that we can help educate the end user, like, hey, maybe next time don't host a meeting when your bandwidth is awful. So we want to arm the folks, and we want to educate the user population on not just that, yeah, we know you experience a problem, but why we experience a problem, so we can make some adjustments and tune and fix this. So with that, I'm going to start off the UC, the managed UC portion, introducing you all to our new client experience portal, which I really love. The benefit, as Ali had mentioned early on here at Acceleration, is we're just not a UC shop. That's just one of many silos. One of our strong suits in our early adoptions was SharePoint. And so having a SharePoint team to create some really nice applications to help has been a really nice component of being here at Acceleration. And this is one thing I always envisioned for our clients is, and you'll find the whole managed UC is about, from a support standpoint, it's not about reactive support. We don't ever want clients calling us up and telling us about problems that they're having. We want to be proactive. So when we look at some monitoring, we'll show you how we'll do that. But at the same time, we want to make it easy in case they need to communicate with us. We want to make it easy for them to come to a portal that's on their site that they can give access to, whoever needs access to it, and look at some pretty neat things. So as an example, I think the consumption component of this portal is really, really powerful. I'm going to go ahead and actually move over the live presentation of this. So the consumption portal is about, we purchased this solution. Are people using it, right? So at a quick glance, on a per month basis, it refreshes. And I can look at this organization had 65,321 instant messages. They had 16,000 video calls, 32,000 voice calls, 12,000 collaboration sessions. And you can even go in and drill down to each one of these locations and actually generate a report. It's great to see it on a monthly basis, but what about if you want to see it on a yearly basis or what you did the previous month? And also a graph to show you progression, like the adoption of the solution. And I think this is really good because I think people will find it's a powerful tool, Skype for Business, but it's also nice to have some validation, like showing some management and showing some folks, like, look at these trends. Look how much we're using this tool. I know we made the right decision. And that's really what that portion of the portal is about. Another portion of the portal I'm really excited about is actually certificates and patch updates. So if we look here, we have a quick view of the patches that are available, as well as certificate expirations, which, if folks are familiar with Link and Skype for Business, as powerful and robust and stable as that platform is when it's when it's built properly, certificate expirations is everybody's headache. And so now we actually have true certificate expiration on days, and it triggers alerts, of course, to the team, both at our company as well as your company when we start getting into the 60 and the 30-day expiration, so that we can apply the new certificate or renew the certificate before it's too late and it expires and lots of problems begin to happen. So these are two components that I'm really excited about that will save a tremendous amount of time. Again, without certificate expiration alerts, we are in reactive states. Customers call us up. We have a problem in UK. People aren't able to make calls or receive their telephone calls from their SIP trunk. And we go in, and after some time, we realize it's a certificate expiration issue. We have them renew certificates, and everything's working again. But why put the customer through that stress? And then also kind of throws the support team off base a little bit. Of course, we're here for support 24/7, but it's nice to know ahead of time that we don't need it to expire. We now know when it's going to expire so we can deal with it properly. I think another really neat thing about this are service tickets requests. Now, of course, anybody can go into a website and create a form on a service ticket, but by the time you're finished, you have filled out 40 to, I'm exaggerating, probably 10, 15, 20 different fields about what you actually want done. And we know, based on your authentication, when you log into your portal, that if you were to select urgent request, that means this is an urgent ticket. You don't have to spend a lot of time here. We just want really a brief title like system down or SIP trunk failure, a description. It's already recognized your company. We already know who's sending it. And the location would be default based on where that location is, but you can also select from a drop-down list maybe where that location is at. You click save, and then we are alerted real-time of the service ticket, comes into our Dynamics Service Help Desk tool, and then you are alerted within 5-minute SLA that we acknowledge your issue and we are beginning work and mediation on your solution. And then, of course, sometimes we just have routine service tickets. Again, we want to make it as simple as possible. Title, brief description. We know it's you. You don't have to refill in and populate a lot of data, not necessary. We're assuming this is the location because we're coming out of London. And then you can either select next available for a service ticket, which puts it into the queue, which our support team is happy to work as quickly as possible. Or many times it's scheduled, right? You don't want work to begin until a certain time. And we truly are a 24/7 shop. This does not mean that we have on-call engineers. We are supporting and managing our environment 24/7. So if you want some work done at 9 o'clock at night, it's perfectly fine. You would enter your time, followed by the date, and then submit. And again, it comes into our Dynamics services desk, and we are able to schedule accordingly. Onboarding has always been a big request. So very similar to scheduled service tickets, but a little more information about who's going to be onboarded, and again, what time would you like us to do the training. And onboarding could just be simply adding users to the environment, making sure that we have the correct capabilities in Skype for Business set up for them, make sure that the mailbox is ready to go for them, and we can provide training as well. Depending on the number of users, based on the type of support, it could be included in the Managed UC offering, where onboarding is no cost and we provide live webinar training for the new hires, or you can also access our library of videos and training material. When we move over to the next spot in the portal, this is again where we get into, we know that the certificate or the patches are available and certificates are expiring. So this again just goes into another ticketing form where you can request these to be applied. And of course, patches, these are always after hours for most businesses. So, Friday, Saturday evening, no problem. Put in your requested date. We will accommodate unless there's already a schedule, but if our client who's possibly scheduled, but we will work with you closely on making sure that we get a date that makes sense for you. Now this projects is really a really neat link. When we deliver our projects, we don't use Microsoft Project. We use our SharePoint site, our PMO site. And what's great about this is this PMO site is shared with our customers, every one of them, when we do new deployments, small or large, it doesn't matter. Everything is here. And I was getting very tired in the old days of sending out SharePoint documents, project plan documents, sending out spreadsheets on requested information, sending out documentation. We all know that documentation gets lost and maybe they have the wrong version that we're working on. That was very difficult. So when we go into our projects, or when you click that project button, you're going to see two things. First thing we're going to see is, this is really your home project page, different projects that may be going on. So we may be deploying, in this case, Skype for Business SBS deployment, or in London, maybe we're deploying the Skype for Business SBA deployment. But down here, you also have a summary of your support requests that we created on those buttons for urgent, routine, onboarding, and so forth. So you always have real-time visibility in the tickets that you created. And then you also have just one button links to different projects that we'll be working on. And so here we get some detail about the actual tasks. And if I open up tasks, you don't want to see that. There is a lot of tasks to make sure that a deployment's successful. We have a risks management, which is one of my favorite pieces, because when you do deployment, sometimes people are waiting for other people and they forget they're supposed to be doing something. And here, if we are exceeding tasks, expirations, we put them into risk management, and it just keeps everybody aware. It's always about not you guys calling up for status. It's like, we love status. We have weekly status calls with all of our deployments, but this is for you at any time, 24/7, really to see what's going on in your project every time. Project issues, you'll have access to the actual project team, and these are the documents I mentioned. We don't email documents all over the place. These documents are uploaded here, and the customer as well as us work on them from here, making sure we're always on one version. So this is really kind of a cool thing, I think, on our portal, is the one button access. And then when we get done, the final one is really a page where we keep our user guides, videos for training that you can download at any time for your user population. So this is the customer experience portal. I'm really excited about it. We've put a lot of time and thought into it, and we're a very small, nimble company, which means that if customers have any request, and I'm not saying like it goes into a queue and you get to it in 6 months, if there's something that makes sense from one of our clients, it's very easy for us to add another tile that may make sense not just for them but our other clients. So it's a living and breathing portal that we're always looking to improve. Now let's talk about support and how are we going to do this. As I mentioned, from a telephony perspective, support is really not an option. Link and Skype for Business, customers think that maybe it is an option, and it is. I mean, everything's an option, but it's very worrisome to me because it is, if you look at the voice piece, you're getting support for one modality of communication. That's it. But when we introduce Skype for Business, that modality of communication, that voice, just like on a phone system, is critical. That's kind of like your lifeline for your clients, to you. So that has to have uptime. That's important. That's why customers who have PBXs keep support, because they can't risk that not ever working. So Skype for Business is the same thing. That is your lifeline into your business. But again, so much more. Now we're introducing video. We're introducing Meet Me conferencing. People are getting rid of their intercalls and their level 3s and their AT&T bridges. This is becoming their conference bridge, small and large bridges. So it's very, very powerful. And we're introducing SharePoint. So there's a lot of, desktop share. There's a lot of extra things going on, and to now think that it's optional doesn't quite make sense to me. I know maybe from a financial standpoint from customers it does, but it's too risky. I think there's too many things going on that you don't want to have 24/7 coverage with full monitoring capability. And so when we deploy a support, or really a project, there's one thing that's very important on the planning phase, and that is our network assessment. When we do network assessments, we don't do a one-time network assessment. I can't emphasize the importance of this. I've been doing network assessments for years, since the early VoIP days in the early 2000s, and I always thought it was so interesting that you do one network assessment, you submit the document to the client. We now know what packets are going to be tagged. We know where there's maybe some potential issues in the network, and that gets filed with the client, the support team, and the manufacturer. You know, networks aren't static. These things change all the time. They change sometimes for some clients on a weekly basis. So how does one network assessment ensure that we're going to have excellent VoIP quality indefinitely? It doesn't. So in our projects, our net new projects, we actually do network assessments pre and post deployment. So we know before and after, making sure that the network is healthy from a WAN and a LAN perspective. And the network assessment is really about traffic simulation. We place these devices called NUCs, and these tiny little devices we ship out to you, or you could use an application on a laptop, but those things go to sleep sometimes and a little more risky, but we want a solid 2 weeks of data. And so these little NUCs go out onto your network, and they have an Ethernet connection or they have a wireless connection. And then that is sending traffic back to our solution, our prospective solution. And so we can crank up the number of simulated calls based on your environment. And based on that, we'll get a really nice report. But here's what's neat. There's options for our clients, and I strongly encourage it, to do ongoing network assessments. Maybe based on the size of the company and changes that occur, I really recommend monthly assessments. The tools we have are already here. So it's really just a matter of a discussion with you on, is this something you are interested in? I would strongly encourage it because, again, we're not in a static network environment. It's very fluid. And so it'd be really nice to know if things starts happening. And if we look at the next slide, I think you'll know what I'm talking about. So when we do a network assessment, we'll get back a whole bunch of data. This is just a couple of charts. But in this data, we kind of discovered, like, you know what, there's some problems going on here based on the day, maybe based on the hour, and we do a full analysis and a breakdown and submit a report to you. What is really interesting is if you look at this example, this is typically what happens, and this is why network assessments are so important. In this particular example, we set up this environment with 70 synthetic agents. Again, these are agents that are simulating traffic constantly, right? No impact to your network, but just simulating traffic, right? 300 calls per hour in this case. 24 hours a day, and as I mentioned, it's nice to go for a solid 2 weeks. 1 week is sometimes sufficient, but 2 weeks we like, but it's going all day long. Now, what we found in this particular example is, for the most part, the jitter, packet loss latency, the MOS was good. So you're going, all right, good, our network's healthy. In many cases, we find that the QoS tags, right, so we always encourage customers to enable QoS. We always want to prioritize our voice and video traffic over other non-time sensitive traffic. But the interesting thing you'll find is some of the carriers, I won't name them, but some of the carriers strip the packets. So they'll say, oh yeah, we are tagging the packets for QoS, but we are able to go in with our analyzer and say, you know what, maybe they're tagging it here, but it's being stripped here. So it's nice to know with our tools that your packets are truly being tagged for quality of service the entire duration of the call. And so this is an example. We found that the tags were not honored in 40 of the 70 locations. And there was something going on every day from 3 to 7 p.m. And so, again, why was this really important? Well, number one, we can now say the QoS was not configured properly, right? So sometimes that's on the carrier side, sometimes on the previous telephony side. We will make sure that the packets are tagged properly. And also this 3 to 7 was kind of interesting because we discovered in this example that there are some high-res image files that were being backed up to main data center. So you can do all the tagging you want. If there's some big files that are clogging up the whole pipe every day from 3 to 7, you're going to have a problem no matter what you got going on. And so at least you are aware ahead of time that there could be a problem. So maybe we change the time of when those files get backed up, or maybe just knowing that, hey, people, we know why your calls are suffering from 3 to 7, and that could be pushed out to your user population. So network assessments pre, post deployment, as well as ongoing, really important for a true managed UC environment and what we support. So now I'm going to get into some stuff that's a little bit more fun. Now, the tool that we use is by a product called Nectar. I love Nectar. I've known them for a very long time. They started off the industry doing monitoring and analysis for the traditional Avayas and then Cisco and now Skype for Business. Very strong tool. They have some secret special sauce that none of the other monitoring tools can have, like in-call depth analysis of what's actually happening with that call, which you'll see a little bit. But very powerful tool. It saves a tremendous amount of time for our engineers to troubleshoot, which means that the client is happier, because the last thing you want to do is say this conference bridge went south and the owner of the business is not happy and everybody's scrambling to try to figure out what happened. In many cases, just say congestion issue without really a better explanation. So now this expedites our time to resolution, which means that you are happier and you are in a less stressful environment supporting the solution from your side. So I'm going to show you guys a couple things. I am just scratching the surface, by the way, folks. There is so much to this tool. It's almost overwhelming, but it's very powerful for us. We have some high-level visibility into the health of your system. And it's also, in every customer is different. How we architect, where we place different analyzers is completely different from one customer to the next. So I can't show everything. I'm just going to high-level scratch the surface. People who are interested in a demonstration that is specific to their environment, I encourage that strongly, and we love doing presentations and demonstrations. So I'm going to start off with one of the first kind of high-level views into our monitoring solution. And there are so many different ways that you can really detail out. We actually don't have this detailed out with maps, though mapping is really kind of a slick way if you have many, many sites. There's all sorts of different views that we can lay out, but this is really for us internally for our team, so we really set up that's the most logical for them. But I want to share with you guys kind of some neat things that you can get an idea of what we're looking at. So this is a common dashboard screen of some sample clients. And if I look down here, first of all, I glance that we have some critical issues going along here. I don't know what they are yet, but they're critical. And if I look at how we have this particular view laid out, it's a map showing their link environment coexisting with their Skype for Business. And I see the red flashing here, and I get another little indicator here for major. So all I really need to do is click on this. In a moment, it's going to pull up this tree. And this is a very powerful tree. It's called a dependency tree. And if we look at this environment, we see a lot of green, which is good, right? So green, 75 different key health metrics are here that are in good shape. conferencing, MCUs, you'll see storage, we'll see processing and all this stuff as we scroll down, CPUs, other services, SQL. Everything is good except for one thing that has put the entire state into a critical state. And that is this, because the dependency tree says it's all green, but if I have one red component in this dependency tree, which affects the front end server, everything else is we're in a critical state. So I can simply click on this and note the time and date the critical alert came. We are alerted on our team. Of course, it hits our desktops and our dashboards, our desktops. We also have this in our NOC, so we have a good view of any red alerts. And also alerts are sent out via email to our managed UC at acceleration.com. And some people as well, it's going out to text. So we're pretty well covered here. But I can open this up and real simple, tell me really what's going on. And that would be server is not connected to the Fabric Pool Manager, right? So the engineers would remove or mediate and make sure that that is resolved as quickly as possible. And again, these are things that sometimes customers may not even know that there's an issue, but we certainly don't ever want it to escalate to a problem. So the sooner we get these alerts, the faster we begin mediation. And the only way we can see this is through monitoring in our managed UC offering. I can do some other things that are kind of neat, like if I wanted to go ahead and do a layout like horizontal, and maybe filter this a little bit more towards critical alerts. This might be a little bit better view for folks. Like, okay, again, the escalation tree is here, but this is where I have a problem, is on this front end. And I can scroll down and see what the issue is right here and open that up and give me the same text I saw before. So this is, again, high-level monitoring. This is typically what we have set up in our monitors because, again, all of our customers detailed out. Green is healthy, everything's good, and then we get into some warnings and then critical states. Another view I like is, let's see, go back to dashboard here. Some of this renders a little bit, so sorry, folks, but we'll go to this view. So this is kind of a nice view for a client. Number of calls. We can see real quickly if there's an issue or a warning on one of the calls. And this starts rendering itself a little bit on some other things that we may be monitoring. We basically select what is important to a customer in Skype for Business environment to both the type of alert, threshold, and so forth. So this is really high-level desktop monitoring for us. And then I'm going to move out of here. I'm going to move on down to, I think, a pretty neat example. So let me go to the next screen, which is really now, okay, the first view is high level. Again, key health indexes are things more or less healthy from a server perspective, really a Skype for Business perspective. But we all know when we're dealing with Skype for Business, the example I used before, customers are on their Ethernet, home and office, and guests at client sites. They're in wireless networks. They're on mobile cellular devices. Some people are using Link or Skype for Business optimized headsets. Others are not. And so quality related issues come into play. And so we need to know why customers are having quality issues. And we want to educate you guys so that that could be passed on and or changes are made to your network. So let's take a look at another example. Stand by one moment, folks. Where did my... Okay, well, we'll go ahead and that's odd. No, I'll go ahead and start this. Okay, I actually had this rendered so you wouldn't have to hang out for a little bit. So this will just take a moment. I'm now going to pull up another component. Now this example would be, hey, we're having some problems with this guy. So we want to know what's kind of happening with him. So let me expand this out a little bit. All right, so actually I'll do that one a little bit later. I'll do this one first. So this is kind of a neat dashboard as well. So I can take a quick look at, basically the health of the quality of the call. And how I'd start that off is I would, quick glance, maybe the top 10 users, top 10 applications, top 10 users in the organization. So in this example, I could hover over this circle chart, and right here, oh, yikes, sorry guys. I'm not sure what just happened there, but anyway, I'm going to come back over to our guy here. And as I hover over this circle, that's not good. That does it again, and I'll probably go to a different section. Okay, this should be good now. So I saw that one of my top 10 users was a guy named Matt Butler. And so I take a look at Matt Butler, and I'm looking at his dashboard here. And I decide, you know what, I want to see what's kind of going on with Matt Butler. So I'll go ahead and check out his streams. Right? He was complaining of some quality issues, and he's not too happy, and we want to make sure that the guy's happy again. So I take a look at these streams that are going on Matt. And I go, all right, so I see a lot of poor calls that are pink, and I see a lot of good calls, right? But the only thing that people remember are poor calls, rightfully so, right? If I have 90 calls in a day and 3 of them are poor, I remember those poor calls. So I want to filter down to Matt and take a look on, let's just take a look at his poor calls. So I can filter this down to the poor calls. And these are the number of calls he had across this example. So the 3 represents he had 3 phone calls on this day and 3 calls on the next day, and he dropped down to these number of calls. I'm going to go ahead and click call status. And now I'm going to look at this and go, okay, well, I know that his client is Skype for Business. This is important, especially for companies who are moving from the Link client, Skype for Business client, even some of those folks who have OCS clients, because clients do have an impact on quality. And if we look at this example, I can see that he is using a Skype for Business client, right? So there's no variation. If he had a Link client, I would see that here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle this again. In this particular case, there's some trends I'm starting to see. This was his Skype for Business client on a previous release, and this is where I saw the majority of the calls that were bad. And then when he went to the new release, it kind of leveled out. Still not giving me a lot of great information, but it's enough where I'm starting to think maybe it's client related possibly. So I can hit my client version again. Now I'm on the network connection. This is where I see, okay, now a lot of the problem areas are Wi-Fi. Of course, we had some Ethernet issues here, but a lot of these are Wi-Fi, and that's really to be expected. I encourage customers, you're deploying Wi-Fi, it needs to be, really one of the solid QoS-enabled Wi-Fi environments. It really makes a huge difference on voice quality, but not everybody's done that. And if they have an enabled QoS for their environment. But if everything's stable in a Wi-Fi environment, it should be as strong as Ethernet. But in many cases, we don't have that luxury of having a real strong Wi-Fi environment in a lot of our clients. But I can see that, Wi-Fi is definitely one of the problem areas. And then I have my mobile client too. So I had a bad call on my mobile client here as well. So I can go ahead and go to this one and go, okay, mobile client here rather. OC is actually really Skype for Business. And I'll toggle this one more time. And so now I'm thinking like, okay, I see some trends. I'm not convinced. Maybe it was client related, maybe not. So let's go ahead and look at some details of this call or this user. And one thing I noticed right off the bat is that his caller device is unknown. In other words, he is not using link optimized devices. Because if he was, I would see like Plantronics Savvy, or I would see a Jabra 510, or any one of the link optimized devices. But an unknown caller capture device is generally like a customer using their mic on their laptop and their speakers on the laptop. And that's one of the other issues that's kind of a challenge sometimes. And we talked about unified availability being anywhere with any device. It's still really important to select some of the link optimized devices like your Jabras, your Plantronics, and your Logitechs, because they are designed for link. It passes on the high def audio. When you go ahead and just use the laptop, PC, and mic, I've used it in extreme cases because I don't sometimes want to pull out my little speaker device to plug in. But I also know that if I use it, the customer is going to potentially hear some quality issues. Now, me hearing quality issues, I know I'm on a laptop speaker. I expect it, but I don't want my customer to hear poor quality. And so it really is important to have those devices. But again, I understand in some cases people are going to resort to their mic on their laptop. But the important thing here is that we're able to drill down to, what really is the problem on his bad calls. And they have a common denominator of, a potentially his devices is unknown. It's a non-link optimized or Skype for Business optimized device. So that gives us some information. Another thing I want to share with you from a troubleshooting perspective that's pretty common is, let me pull this up. I'm sorry, guys. I really did have these laid out so you didn't have to wait for me, but we're going to have to do that today. So I'm going to go into demo here. Now, this is a pretty cool deck, and we're getting close to wrapping up, so you guys can make sure you get to your lunch if you're on the Pacific Standard Time. All right, so here is another tool we use in our tool set for quality. And again, just to frame everything, the high level is we use the monitoring tool real time just to make sure things are healthy in your network environment. If there's alerts there, it alerts us to here, and then these tools are really getting onto the end user and kind of network consideration issues. So we typically drill down from top down to these. So here's a couple things I'll show you. This is a very powerful dashboard. A lot of times I'll look at active alerts. So our team will come in here and see, okay, these are active alerts based on some users, and they're getting some bad MOS scores. I will also have, I like looking at site view on a specific customer site. I can drill down, to 2 layers deep, in New York with the type of servers they have and things of that sort, and I can see real-time alerts. But in this particular example, I'm going to go in and I'm going to investigate this one user. And her name is Suni. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down for you guys to see this a little better. And I'm going to let's do just the previous hour is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and submit. And I'm going to see now with Suni, and I'm going to expand this out for you guys, sorry. I'm going to see now that Suni's had a lot of calls, right? So I see she's calling from Suni. These are the numbers she's calling, time and date. And over here, I can sort by either MOS or I can sort by network loss. So I'm going to go ahead and sort by network loss in this example. And so this is from 0 network loss, but we want to see some bad calls because she was complaining on a specific date or time, right? So we can search by her or her date and time, real simple. And I see that, wow, that's a big network loss. What's also neat here, folks, is this MOS score. Now the 4.13, the first number is really what the MOS score should be based on the codec set that call's writing over. And then the second one was what the actual MOS score was, which is really bad. We want MOS scores in the high 3s, in the 4s, not 1.66. So if I go ahead and open up and I search this particular record, this is really neat. I'm going to open this up for you guys. And there's a couple things that I see here. The first one is, this is the call path, right? So I'm going to explain a couple things to you. First of all, this is the source. So this is Suni, and she's calling her destination somewhere out here by San Francisco, let's say. And what I note is there's different measuring points. These are called analyzers. How detailed this gets is based on when we sit down and design the monitoring solution for a client on where we put these analyzers. And these analyzers could be virtual. They're virtual analyzers, and they can be physical devices as well. And we'll get into that. But the important piece is that we have some analyzers that are basically saying that, when the call comes in, going in to these different locations, like in this particular call, maybe we say it's in New York, and then they have the Skype for Business server sitting in Dallas, and then they're making a call to San Fran, and we have these analyzers placed in different locations. We know that the call is coming in pretty healthy, and then right about here, these analyzers are paired, by the way, the A and E. Right about here, we notice like, whoa, bad call coming in, which basically means that we now are able to identify that this is roughly the location where we're having a problem, right? And if we look at this red, this is telling we got some experiencing congestion. But let's look down here first. This is really pretty neat. This is how it breaks the analyzers broken down. And this is why Nectar is so special, because it's really the only tool where we can do in-call analysis. If we look at all the other monitoring tools out there, it's post-average. This is so critical, because if you were to say, hey, one of our customers had a bad call, and I go in and say, well, actually it's a 4.1, that's a good call. Well, maybe out of an hour call, 95% of it was good, but the 5% that was bad, that's what the customer remembers, and that's what the client remembers. So we need to make sure that the call is always perfect, and if it's not, why? So when I break this down, you'll note I have my source to destination, how I bracket out my analyzers are up here. And then I can get an idea, right? There's another neat thing is I know the codec set with Microsoft. Sometimes it will change. So as codecs get real bad or the bandwidth, the quality of the bandwidth gets bad, we start changing our codecs a little bit to adjust for the poor quality. And, sorry guys, and then the other thing we're going to look at here is I'm trying to get to this one section here. Oh. All right, folks. Again, doing too many windows here. Let me start. This will be well worth it, I promise. Okay, we'll bring this guy back. Sorry, guys. Okay, so I'm going to real quickly just go right to Suni, and we'll hit her right here, and we'll go ahead and go previous hour, so we like that. And as before, we went ahead and opened up this so you guys can see. Then I'm going to, I'll sort by MOS score. Doesn't matter. MOS score is important. I'll sort by network loss. Okay, so we're back to this poor call. I'm going to search. Okay, so we're back here. Now I'm going to open up this. And it's showing me, again, the codec that's being used. My MOS score is looking really solid, and then bam, this is where I start having a problem. And my MOS score is usually correlated to my packet loss, which down here is really high, 22% or so. But here's what's pretty slick. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and I'll go and take a look at the MOS score. And I'll see that this is the MOS score it should be at. But right here during the call, so if this call was at 11:04 through 11:10, it was really good at the beginning and then just dropped big time down into that 1, up to almost 3, down again, right? So this is really not good. Same thing, if I go down to the actual packet loss, I'll really see the exact opposite, right? Because this is now telling me no packet loss, but really spikes up 35, 40%. That's big. So now I got to figure out, all right, so what is actually really happening here? So going back up here, it's nice to know that she definitely had quality issues. That we know. But if I go to this location, I'm going to go ahead and hover over my congestion area. And if I go down to the QoS queue setting, and I'll go, let's add 15 minutes here. If I go down here and click Submit, and I go to Results, this is the interesting piece. So in this particular example, the customer had set, along with carrier, what percentage of bandwidth allocation we're going to have over, say, this WAN. And maybe the QoS setting for voice was 13%, and we set the QoS setting for Microsoft Link at 15%. In other words, we're reserving that amount for quality of service. And you'll see right here, this is the problem. It exceeded by 3% the bandwidth for voice that we've allocated for QoS, and here by 8%. So now we have some things to think about, like, well, is this a one-off experience? And maybe we just kind of let her know we're sorry that this happened, but we did have some bandwidth issues. Or do we want to go ahead and take a look at this topology? Again, I'm going to do another 15 minutes here. So that's kind of telling me all the calls that happened that went across this exact network, this exact same router. And now I'm seeing all the people that were impacted by this call, right? And so there's a lot of people that could potentially be impacted. And if I go back again and maybe check out the MOS score or the network loss, I see that it wasn't just Suni, but all these people had experienced these low MOS scores due to network congestion. So now I have a decision to make as a network administrator, and that is, and us would be, you guys, this is not a one-off Suni issue. This is an issue that is impacting a lot of people within your organization. So 2 recommendations. Number 1, we probably want to reach out to those people and say, hey, we experienced a severe network degradation today. We apologize, right? It's about being proactive instead of reactive. A lot nicer for your user population. And the second part is maybe it's time to bump up because people are starting to adopt the technology more and more. Maybe we bump up the QoS settings to maybe 20 or 25% where we want to guarantee the packet pass-through, the Skype for Business and voice pass-through. So this is a really, really very powerful tool as well. And I really like the ability to not just focus in on that one individual, but again, see who else in the organization is impacted on any of these voice quality issues. So that, folks, again, just scratched the surface. There's so much more, but we don't have a lot of time, and I figured let's go ahead and just hit some key things and see how we do some troubleshooting. The last thing I really wanted to talk about before there's any questions that people may have is really what our Managed UC offering looks like. We have 3 flavors: Managed UC, Managed UC Pro, Managed UC Pro Plus. And you can see even from the base level that we include 24/7 system monitoring using the tools we just showed, full remote diagnostics and remediation. So we're actually getting in there, diagnosing the issue, recommending or doing the remediation, and then we're there 24/7 for help desk support. You'll get basic health performance reports, which there's a lot I would have shown you today, but we're a bit out of time. But really some key reports like what I just showed you can show you, this is a trend that's been happening over some time. And then priority queuing because you're our help support customer as opposed to a time and material customer. With our Pro version, we're adding to that some key things really is the synthetic traffic analysis. So these are people who really want ongoing network assessment, which I'd strongly recommend. But, if you, a smaller shop or maybe not think that's a value, then that's okay. We can still do some one-off on a project basis. But customers who have the Pro will have ongoing synthetic traffic analysis, business reviews, again, which comes with the reports and some write-ups. And I think down here, this is when you get the customer portal. So up here, you can obviously still call us and email us and request tickets, but the portal experience, there's quite a bit of work that goes into setting that up, is reserved for clients who have Pro. And then the Pro Plus is really all of this, of course, and the big thing here is really we become your in-house support team. So all the onboarding, of course, all the troubleshooting, we take care of the entire system. We also are very strong from a carrier liaison and can help you with any carrier-related issues, from both project coordinating, new circuit deployments, help auditing some solutions. We work with some strong companies. But the key is a carrier liaison, because if you are having issues with your PRIs or your SIP trunks, we want to be the LOA. We want to carry the letter of authorization for you so we can call on behalf of you. Because if we look here and we're able to see if this is a SIP trunk related issue or a PRI related issue, we would like to be able to call the carrier on your behalf so that you don't have to call them. So with the full Managed Pro Plus, you get all of that, as well as unlimited adds, moves, and changes. So you want to change some response group routing, auto tenant greetings. That's all part of the solution. Again, just imagine you have a big Skype for Business environment. You really don't want anybody internally to support it. We become truly your support from A to Z. So folks, that was, I went over by 8 minutes. I apologize, but I did. So I hope you guys liked it. We're very excited about the solution, and open up for any questions or comments if there are any.
As a reminder to our audience, you can ask a question by clicking on the messages button in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen and type in your question and press submit. David, I don't see any questions at this point, so you may want to go ahead and say your closing comments. If somebody comes in with a question while you're speaking, I will interject.
You got it. Well, guys, once again, thank you. I know we covered a lot. I'd love to come out and have a more specific discussion around from architectural planning, strategies on Skype for Business deployments, all the way down to our managed UC support offering. We are very excited about this. Again, it's all about lessons learned from the last 25 years, where we just don't want you as the customer to stress out, to be worried about down systems, to be worried about silly things like certificate expirations, and bring that all into us and be very proactive in knowing high level, all the key health indexes in a Skype for Business environment, your elements from Sonos session border controllers to audio codes, your endpoints. We all have complete visibility. And by having that whole visibility, we could really pretty much assure that we can keep your environment in a good, healthy state, regardless of what devices people are using and where they're accessing it from. And if there are quality issues, because some things we just can't control, then at least we want to arm you with the right information and the intelligence to go back to your team member and say, this is kind of what's happening, to really correct their behavior in certain cases, or at least let them know this is what to expect. It's fine to keep doing it, but just know that there may be some issues. We just want to arm everybody with the information. So with that, thank you, everybody. I hope it was a good meeting for you. And
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I do have actually one question for you.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, how do these support services differ when using Cloud PBX?
Well, that's a great question. It doesn't, actually. This is a solution that we're able to utilize even with Microsoft's E5 solution coming up, as well as in a hosted solution, a hosted PBX solution. So this is what I talked about today, is really not only for our clients with premise-based solutions, which is the majority of people. When we talk about telephony platforms, right, we typically bring it on-prem. I mean, we kind of have to. But again, we are aware that Microsoft's releasing E5 soon, where the PBX PSTN can be in the cloud for certain clients, not all. I think maybe for some of the smaller ones, but it'll be there. But we can provide similar services as well.
That's our only question we had today, David.
All right. And contact information, I actually didn't. Oh, it is there. So anybody has any question on anything, You can always call, of course. Here's my email address. My phone number is 949-242-3344. Again, 949-242-3344. Or you can email me, and I'd be happy to talk to you directly. If there's some things I don't know, which is a ton, I have my engineers that are all around me who actually do the actual support of these solutions and the architectural planning. So with that, thank you, everybody. I hope you all have a great day. Sorry it went over a bit, but I think it's a wrap.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Ali, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. That does conclude our session for today. You may now disconnect.